So neurology is a specialty in medicine that studies the nerves, and not only the nerves of the brain, but the nerves of the spinal cord and the nerves as they leave the spinal cord. Nerves are like a little teeny tiny electrical wires that allow muscles to work. It process information that comes into your eyes, information that comes into your ears when you feel pain. All of these senses are initially detected by nerve endings.
How many years of school did it take to become a neurologist?
Lots. So after high school, you have to go to college. And college can last anywhere from 4 years, or if you take your time or don't know what you want to do initially, it can last a little longer. So college took me 4.5 years. And towards the end of my college career, I decided that I wanted to go to medical school. So you have to apply. So you have to get good grades, and then you have to take a test called the MCAT and apply to medical school. And then if you have competitive statistics, you'll hopefully get some interviews from medical schools like the University of Wisconsin or the Medical College of Wisconsin, or if you're really smart, Harvard or San Francisco, Yale, etc. And then if you get accepted into medical school, that's another 4 years. And after 4 years of medical school, you decide what field of medicine you want to go into, whether you want to be a family doctor or an internal medicine doctor or a heart doctor or a neurologist or a surgeon. You kind of figure out what field of medicine really interests you. I liked neurology. I thought the science was really cool, and trying to solve the problem, you're like a detective, was really cool. So then I decided I wanted to go into neurology, and residency or training for neurology is another 4 years. Now that's a little different from specialty to specialty. Family medicine and internal medicine, as well as pediatrics, are 3 years, but sometimes training programs like neurosurgery and orthopedic surgery can be 10 years. So I did 4 years of residency and then another year just focusing on epilepsy or seizures.
A lot of school.
A lot of school, but it's fun. Yeah, and you learn a lot.
Was school challenging, and if so, how?
Yes. School is very challenging. So college, you focus more on sort of a pre-med course, so lots of science classes. And certain areas of science were very tough for me, and certain areas of science were less tough. I really liked biology and biochemistry, but organic chemistry in particular sticks out in my mind as a very tough class. Everyone's mind works a little bit differently. So certain classes, some English classes I really liked. Calculus I didn't like. It was really hard for me, but it's very challenging. Medical school is challenging a little bit differently than college in that it's not the class you're taking, it's the volume. So you have a whole lot of classes in a short period of time, so it would not be uncommon to stay up all night studying for a bunch of tests and then take them the next day and then take an awesome nap when you get home. But it's challenging on a couple different levels. But again, if you really like what you're doing, it kind of goes fast and it's interesting. And you get to study with really smart people from all over the world, for that matter.
Mm-hmm. What schools did you go to?
So I went to high school in Oconto, Wisconsin. Have you ever heard of Oconto?
It's kind of on the way up to Benacqua.
It is.
Green Bay area?
Yep, so it's north of Green Bay, so instead of turning left and going west to get to Minocqua, you keep going north. Yeah. So I went to high school in Oconto, Wisconsin, then I went to college at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay for 4.5 years, and then medical school at Midwestern University, which is just outside Chicago, and then I did residency and fellowship at Froedtert.
How many patients do you have a day?
So that's variable. Sometimes patients don't show up because they can be sick, they can have stroke, or they can have weakness from MS or Parkinson's, and it's hard for them to get out. So if the weather's crummy, like it's going to be tomorrow, as Sherry can tell you, sometimes patients don't show up, or sometimes they forget about their appointment. But on average, I have between 10 and 20 per day.
What is the most interesting case that you have come across?
Ooh. There are a lot of them. One that comes to mind is I had a guy that had a stroke, so part of his brain wasn't getting the blood it needed, so just a small part of his brain died. He wasn't weak, he wasn't numb, he could see fine, and he could recognize people, but he couldn't recognize their faces. So he could see, hey, Caden, and recognize you by your voice, but if he was just looking at you, he would recognize your body, he would recognize how you move, but he wouldn't be able to recognize your face. And there's actually a cool book, if you're ever so interested, about a famous neurologist that, of all the interesting cases he saw, and it's The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. And it's by Oliver Sacks. So another guy had a stroke where he thought his wife was a hat. So you see all this cool stuff, but you'll get people that come in with funny movements on one side of the body, and then you have to put your detective hat on. You have to try to figure out where the problem is. Is this in the brain? Is this in the spinal cord? Is this in the nerves outside the spinal cord? Is this a muscle problem? Something wrong with the blood? Etc. So we get really cool cases.
That is very interesting.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's one that comes to mind. Trying to think of any recent cases, but the key is variety. You see a lot of different stuff, and that's what keeps it interesting.
What does your daily job consist of?
So my day starts off at Starbucks, where I get a lot of caffeine. So I usually have a coffee at about 6:30 in the morning, and I look up all my patients for the day. So if they had an MRI of the brain, I look at their pictures. If they had blood work done, I review their lab tests. If they had some sort of other testing, like an EEG, which is a test to detect seizures, or an EMG that looks for a problem in the nerves outside of the spinal cord, I'll review all of their testing, and I usually start their notes too, so I get a head start. And then from 8 to 4, I see patients. So I talk to them, I examine them, I see how they're doing, see if any new symptoms have popped up since the last time we spoke, and then we make a plan, whether it's adjusting medicines or sending them to therapy or get an additional test like an MRI or an EEG. And usually I finish my day about 4:15, and then I go to the gym to unwind.
At what age did you want to become a neurologist?
So initially I wanted to be a teacher, then I wanted to be a doctor for a little while. Well, initially I wanted to be the quarterback for the Packers, but once I figured out that I wasn't going to, I decided I wanted to get into education. It wasn't until a little later in life that I decided I wanted to get into medicine, probably about age 20 or 21, somewhere in that age. But you have plenty of time. Even when you're in college, if you don't know what you want to do, don't rush it. Take as many classes, wide variety of classes as you can, because you might be interested in something that you didn't think you'd be interested in.
Was it hard to get employed?
Actually, no. So if you go to medical school, and if you pass and do well, or fairly well, and then you complete your residency and you take all the tests that require you to become certified, meaning you're legal and able to practice medicine in the United States, there's a shortage of doctors right now, whether it be neurologist or internal medicine doctor or pediatricians. There's a shortage, so it is not hard to get a job. Now, some specialties are pretty competitive, like dermatology. You know, it's a good lifestyle. You do make a fair amount of money, and that field compared to neurology is more competitive. But I can speak for myself, and it was not hard to find a job.
What all do neurologists research?
So research is actually a broad field in neurology. You can further break neurology down into certain sectors. There's a lot of research in stroke. There's a lot of research in seizures, so when someone has an electrical storm in their brain. There's a lot of research in areas like ALS. I don't know if you remember the Ice Bucket Challenge. Do you remember the Ice Bucket Challenge? That's to raise money for ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. There's research for different types of cancers. There are certain cancers of the brain, like glioblastoma. They currently do not have a cure. So all of these fields are being researched. There's so many different areas. So if you become a neurologist someday and you really like stroke, there are new ways that stroke is being treated. Freighter is involved in several studies for stroke right now. Seizures are so many different. You know, one of the big hot topics right now is cannabidiol, which is actually part of the marijuana plant. That's looked at being used for treating certain seizures. There are other certain treatments that are being looked at, injecting a virus into a tumor. That sounds crazy. You know, viruses cause infection, but polio virus being injected into a tumor to kill the tumor and not hurt the person is being looked at. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many different areas of research.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Do you have any other questions?
No.
I'm going to have Sherry give you my email too, so if you have questions.